this Facebook Live. It's quite a special Facebook Live, you'd have to say. I'm joining you from BioAsia, the 15th edition, all the way in Hyderabad. And you can see that I have a very special guest with me this afternoon, Mr. Rama Rao. Mr. Rama Rao, thank you very much for joining in. It is the 15th edition of BioAsia in Hyderabad. Tell us what the theme is this year.
Well, in fact, like every year in the last 15 years, we've focused on ensuring that Hyderabad retains and Hyderabad sustains its leadership position in pharmaceuticals, bulk drugs, and biotech. In fact, as you may be knowing, Ekta, we are the world's largest single cluster which produces vaccines. In fact, if you look at the vaccine production world over, more than 1/3 of the global vaccines are produced here. So we are focused on ensuring that BioAsia once again gives us that opportunity to understand what's happening, what are the emerging trends across the world, what are the new regulatory restrictions or regulatory guidelines that have come up, which will also once again give us direction on the way forward. So we've been focused this year on learning more from people across the world. And we have more than 2,000 people coming in, visitors and delegates included, and we have more than 45 countries participating. And great learnings in the last 14 years and 15th year. In fact, just to give you a perspective of what we've achieved in BioAsia, more than 150,000 crores of investment in the last 15 years have come through different MOUs that have been signed. More than 90 countries have participated in the last 15 years. And this has really helped us build our ecosystem. Genome Valley is extremely special. It's the largest biotech cluster in Asia. And this is the center where we manufacture all our vaccines. And in fact, a lot of engagements with governments from across the world and also from within the governments in India and also Government of India. We've been able to get multiple breakthroughs through BioAsia. So it's a very special event for us. And it's the largest of its kind in Asia. So excited.
Okay, but you have a couple of tie-ups this year. Your international partner is Ireland and I think Holland as well. And on the other side, the state side, you have Gujarat as a tie-up. Tell us what these tie-ups mean and why Ireland, why Gujarat?
Well, Gujarat is not a bad state to tie up with, as you know. I think Prime Minister's home state and also the second largest pharma cluster in India is Ahmedabad. So Gujarat is a great partner to have. So is Ireland, because Ireland is where, again, single largest concentration of pharma bulk drug companies in the world. And they have some amazing biotech companies as well, and they are as a very small country with a very small land area, they've done exceptionally well on this side. So these are great partnerships to forge because they are great amount of learnings. And also, as I've said, Hyderabad on this continuum of entire life sciences spectrum, if you look at, we have a couple of things happening. One, we're the bulk drugs capital of India right now. We are the single largest cluster of pharma production in India. More than 35% of pharma in India is produced in Hyderabad or manufactured in Hyderabad. And we also export quite a bit to the US. In fact, our size of the industry here in Hyderabad today is about $50 billion, if you look at it. So our aim is to double this in the next 10 years to $100 billion. And in that journey, we have decided that we'll also create more focused, impetus is given to not only policy and fiscal support from the government in the way of creation of infrastructure, but we also want to expand and innovate more. We also want the industry to collaborate more with us. So we have come up with 3 or 4 things which could be of interest to you. Hyderabad Pharma City would be the single largest pharma cluster in the world, in 19,000 acres of space, very close to Hyderabad Airport. In fact, we are awaiting the final clearance from MOEF. Hopefully when that comes through, we can quickly get going. The second thing we are going to be setting up, in fact, it is already underway, is the largest medical devices park, the MedTech park in India, in about 250 acres, again very close to Hyderabad. That gives a very unique opportunity for large number of med devices manufacturers from across the world, because the large Indian market in itself is a huge opportunity, 1.32 billion people, importing 70% of medical devices right now. And with Make in India campaign, Make in Telangana campaign, we want to manufacture more and more. We want to get more and more of these guys into Hyderabad. The third thing I will talk about is Genome Valley 2.0. We created Genome Valley 1.0 about 20 years ago. Now 2.0 will also start looking at newer trends, biosimilars, biopharma production that is happening across the world, even in Ireland, Japan, even in China and many other countries in Europe. We are looking at more and more manufacturing of these to come to India. We are also looking at setting up an incubator which would focus on nanosciences, immunotherapy. In fact, we had announced it last night that we'd be setting this up in Genome Valley in Shamirpet. So at Genome Valley 2.0, a medtech park and Hyderabad Pharma City is how we look at taking, doubling the $50 billion business to $100 billion in the next 10 years. And we see all of this in a very synergistic fashion working with each other. These three clusters together will propel Hyderabad into that orbit.
I'm going to ask you more about Pharma City as well as the medical devices park in just a bit. But before that, you're holding BioAsia at a time when it is actually a difficult scenario for the entire pharmaceutical space. You're talking about generic pricing pressure in the US. You're talking about, you know, NPPA back home, etc. And it goes on. In this context, and you've mentioned before that the government should be an enabler. In this context, how important is government support at this time? And do you think that theme of these challenges is playing up in BioAsia this time?
Government support is critical because especially if you are looking to compete globally, the Indian industry needs a great deal of support. Like you said, NPP on one side, the prices with respect to generics, exclusivity of, there are a bunch of things which we can talk about. As a federal government of India, in fact, has been doing its bit. But I think as the state which has got the single largest concentration of pharma companies, what government of Telangana is going to do through BioAsia, in fact, I'll be discussing this with Mr. Suresh Prabhu tomorrow morning as well. We want the industry, the Indian industry, to understand that the state government of Telangana is going to be their advocate, their champion of their cause, with Government of India and with the regulatory bodies across the world as well. We want to take it upon ourselves. I know the industry can talk for itself, but when a state government decides to collaborate and champion their cause, it would lend that much more credibility, that much more authenticity, because we don't have a vested interest other than creating employment, other than creating more wealth for our citizens. So therefore, when an industry body talks or when an industry representative talks, it would be looked at with a bit of it should be taken with a pinch of salt. But when a government talks and when a government becomes their partner, which is what we are wanting to do, I think it will be taken a lot more seriously. Having said that, not only championing the cause, but I think even the industry needs to understand that they need to start diversifying a bit. They need to start focusing on specialty products a bit. We as a country also don't spend enough on research and development. I think we spend less than 1% on research and development. I think even government needs to encourage private sector collaboration on R&D. We need to give them more incentives to basically ensure that they actually spend more on R&D, because generics and India being the pharmacy of the world, while it continues to remain the mainstay of what we do, I think going forward, if we are talking 2.0, if we are talking innovation, talking future, then we as an industry, we as governments also have to get our act together. Incentivize industry to do more, because government is unable to spend more on R&D. As we are still a third world country which has to get its basic infra right, the basic welfare programs, the vulnerable sections, the BPL families. So if we really want the industry to step up, because there is capital, they have access to capital, they can spend that on R&D, provided we give them that helping hand, helping support by way of incentivization.
So Genome Valley 2.0, is that going to be focused primarily on R&D? And when you talk about R&D, what are the kind of initiatives we can expect? Because when we talk about, say, biosimilars and biotechnology, the world is ahead of us at this point. That's probably the next phase of genericization that we could see.
Well, let me tell you 2-3 things about Genome Valley 2.0. One thing we are looking at is innovation in a big way. Innovation in India is something that has not been focused on by the government. It has largely come from the private sector. Largely, private sector has led it, and they've championed it, and they have completely done it by themselves, despite the governments, in fact, so far. But we've already created India's largest tech incubator in Hyderabad called T-Hub. Now, T-Hub in the last 2 years has worked as a catalyst in creating about 35 co-working spaces in the city of Hyderabad, 35 incubators in the city of Hyderabad. Many of them, again, have been focused on healthcare and life sciences. The reason being, Hyderabad has this amazing ecosystem which I mentioned about in life sciences and healthcare. Now, a convergence of technology, convergence of healthcare, convergence of all of these is going to result in a lot of digital health innovations, digital life sciences innovations also happen, and we want to leverage that. The second thing is Genome Valley 2.0 itself will have, like I said, an incubator focused on nanosciences, immunotherapy, and all the emerging fields in this area. So that would also help, I believe, again, with, of course, the support of industry and participation of the industry. That will also help achieve a bit of scale in innovations going forward. Now, the third thing, which I think is important, is the fact that India still does not have a good animal, a testing lab, which is again being set up in Hyderabad. India's largest would be in Hyderabad. Clinical trials again is an issue, which again we are going to work with Government of India and ensuring that we come out with something extremely organic, at the same time extremely conducive for business houses and for industry to work on further research and further on the way forward. So a combination of all this, combined with, of course, the mainstay has always been manufacturing. The mainstay has always been focused on the generics, which will continue to remain at least for the next 1 decade or so.
So would there be a focus in terms of API and medical devices specifically? I know you spoke about the park, but to reduce the kind of dependence that we have on imports.
API, in fact, is the focus for Hyderabad Pharma City. Hyderabad Pharma City would start looking at more API manufacturing there, and that has been the focus. In fact, we have a team driving that. In fact, we have a team which is visiting different parts of the world, trying to promote more and more manufacturing happening in India. So yes, absolutely, reduction of import duties, high barriers, etc., is while the domain of Government of India. The focus of states such as ourselves, which want to position our parks, create more employment, should be on local manufacturing, on APIs and others as well.
And medical devices park?
Med devices park is coming up very well. In fact, we already have signed about 13 MOUs.
Okay.
And most of these are homegrown companies. I'm looking at multiple opportunities. In fact, I was at Advomed in Minnesota last year trying to pitch to large multinationals and large US companies as well to come in to India. In fact, one of the things you should know where Hyderabad enjoys a bit of advantages, if you look at the overall FDA approved entities and US FDA approved entities in India, out of the 160 odd US approved entities, we have more than 60 right here in Hyderabad. So there is a very conducive environment in Hyderabad, and there is a good image that Hyderabad enjoys, especially in the US. So hopefully Med Devices Park will also be able to leverage that image that Hyderabad enjoys, and will be able to attract large number of these multinationals, set up their manufacturing facilities. And then there is also the Make in India campaign, which incentivizes you to manufacture in India. It doesn't necessarily talk about making in any particular state. So I hope we will be that gateway to India for these companies looking at us.
What about training? There's a lot spoken about these kind of compliance issues that India faces when it comes to the US FDA. You're probably at the position where you can provide, the government can support training for skilled workforce in order to eventually improve the kind of compliance issues that we face. Any initiatives we can see there?
Sure. In fact, life sciences skilling is one of the focus areas for a very special institute we have called as TASK, the Telangana Academy for Skill and Knowledge. In fact, last year, life sciences skilling has been a focus area because these are two strengths in Hyderabad, information technology and life sciences. These are two areas where we train thousands of our children. The very unique program that we've created, Ekta, is that if a manufacturer or an R&D facility and a private player wants to come into the state of Telangana, they're willing to share with us the specific skill set that they are looking for. And if they want, say, for example, hypothetically speaking, 500 workforce, we will train 1,000 students at our cost. The government will actually incur that expenditure. We'll give that 1,000 to them. They can cherry pick the best 500, which makes it extremely attractive, extremely unique program in terms of skilling, with a very, very specific skill set and with a very specific curriculum. So that's one of the things we do. The second thing I can talk about quickly is, in fact, we are entering into a very unique program, because when you talk about the perspective of the industry with respect to skill set, the complaint that I get to hear very often is that these students who go through this amazing academic institutions, unfortunately, are not job ready by the time they graduate. So we've started another very interesting program called RICH, the Research and Innovation Circle of Hyderabad, which facilitates a great deal of interaction between the various academic institutions and the industry. So what happens essentially is most of these workforce essentially, or students especially, get to spend quality time in the industry. So that a good synergistic opportunity for them to learn while they actually go to school, and at the same time for the industry also to pick up some really good qualified manpower. So it's a very collaborative experience we're talking about.
Okay, well, we've got a lot of Twitter queries and Facebook queries for you, and a lot of it was not to do with medical and pharmaceuticals.
No, let's focus on that.
Yeah, so that's the first, had to cherry pick. We have Mr. Kishore Nayak, who's asking that rural medical practitioners and private medical practitioners prescribing antibiotics, many of them are not registered with paramedical boards before starting their practice, referring patients to private hospitals on a commission basis. That's something that you'd look into and comment on.
Well, the rural India, the rural landscape, unfortunately, does not have adequate number of medical professionals, and that's why you have the registered medical practitioners, the private medical practitioners ruling the roost. In most cases, I think while they are not qualified medically speaking, technically speaking, they've been serving the local community for the longest of time. So maybe governments have to take a very lenient view on this and train them, in fact skill them, train them, and ensure that they at least receive the basic training that is required to make sure that they actually are authenticated and qualified enough.
Any initiatives we can expect?
That really, technically, that falls under my health minister's domain. I can't comment on that, but at the same time, I think something that we need to look at for sure.
Okay. Well, we have another one. Saeed Samir 88 is asking, so pharmacy colleges in our state are not providing basic amenities as well as better lab facilities.
Once again, I might sound evasive, but that really technically falls under the Education Ministry, but something I can take it to the notice of our Honorable Education Minister.
Okay, well, there's one which is asking that alcoholism in the state is high. Any measures to reduce it for people's well-being?
Any measures to reduce it?
Yeah.
Well, there are campaigns, but it's a very individual choice. How are you going to, alcoholism, consumption of tobacco, consumption of all these products. While we campaign that they are injurious to health, it's a very individual decision. And now, if we push it a bit too hard, we might be accused of intruding into people's privacy as well. So it's a private choice an individual is making. While there is definitely the effort of the government to contain it, to actually also make people aware of the ill effects of it. There's only so much you can do, especially when it comes to an individual choice in a democracy.
Okay, well, we have one more question which is coming in, and this is to do with infrastructure. How about developing the infra of government hospitals which can provide all the services, and now a new scheme of the central government which basically has an insurance cover of around 5 lakh rupees, which is obviously the National Health Protection Scheme? We've
been, in fact, Government of India may have woken up now, but we've been doing a lot of things on ensuring that our citizens' health is taken care of. We have a scheme in Telangana called as Arogyashree, which nearly covers about 1,000 ailments, and it gives all the BPL families in the state a choice, in fact, of going to either a government hospital or a network of hospitals, thousands of them across the state, and getting treated free of cost. So that has been happening here for the last nearly, I think, a decade now. So this state is already ahead when it comes to the health insurance scheme you mentioned, but improving infrastructure within government hospitals is a constant endeavor we have been making. In fact, after the new state of Telangana has come into being, we have done some things which have significantly reduced the infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate in my state. I'm proud of it. In fact, as a state, we've started nearly 40 dialysis units in government hospitals, and I'm proud to share with you, improved infrastructure in a big way, which I think is helping a lot of people who have kidney-related problems. We also have, in fact, created number of ICUs. In fact, the number of ICU beds have been increased. I don't have the exact numbers. I'm sure the Health Ministry would be able to share it with you. But the number of ICU beds in government hospitals have been enhanced significantly. Third thing we do is something which I'm extremely proud of. KCR kit has been launched, which basically has been distributed to nearly 200,000 people now. All the deliveries that happen, institutional deliveries that happen in our state, we incentivize them. We basically give them not only a kit which has got about 12 things that would be important for the child, newborn child and the mother, but we also give what is called as part of the scheme 12,000 rupees as wage loss to the BPL families and the women, and 13,000 if they actually have a girl child. So a combination of all these things, in fact, is what is helping our state reduce IMR and MMR. Let me also point out to another thing. In government hospitals, for the first time possibly in India, we have liver transplantations and kidney transplantations and heart transplantations also happening in our government institutions. So we are extremely proud of what we've achieved, but if you ask me, is that enough? I would say long way to go.
Long way to go. Okay, there's one question which is coming in with regards to technology. So I'm going to pose that to you. Now that we're stepping towards advanced technology like data sciences as well as artificial intelligence, is it possible to build a health map for the entire state that denotes the key health issues area-wise, focused on the rural area and seasonal trends in public health? So maybe this would be down your alley, considering that it could be technology combining with healthcare.
Absolutely, I think it's a great idea. I thank the person who sent it, because I think it's an excellent idea, because we do have certain epidemics popping up in certain pockets of the state every so often, which are seasonal in nature. That could be contained, that could be mapped. In fact, I'm proud of one of the initiatives we've started in our state, Ekta. It is combining AI and machine learning. We've started screening children in primary schools across a number of schools in our state with Microsoft as a partner. We screen their eyes. We conduct eye screening camps to basically make sure, to basically ascertain if they are going to develop a disorder which is linked to preventable blindness.
Sure.
And this is a first of its kind initiative combining AI. AI is something that people talk about, but our government in fact is putting it to practical use, and I'm very proud that we are pioneering it. And we also are in fact mulling cancer screening along with Tata Trust, and across the state. This might start soon as well, and we are going to cover the entire population of the state in the next 5 years. So these are initiatives which we have already started leveraging technology, but this suggestion about mapping the entire state and especially the rural areas is fantastic. I'll definitely start working on it. The other thing I would mention quickly is I've been in fact pioneering along with our health minister a cause which I think is definitely something that would help not only our state but the entire country. Using Aadhaar seeding, using Aadhaar as a seeding point, we could even build the health records of each and every citizen, at least the basic data, which can help again all of us. So digitization of health records is high on the agenda, which again will help all of us.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up this conversation with one last query for you. Though India ranks top 20 in world for private healthcare, studies acknowledge that people lack confidence when it comes to public healthcare. Majority of Indians still choose private over public healthcare despite the cost. So what can the government do to bring trust in public health?
The rest of India needs to emulate Telangana, because we have been able to inspire confidence in our rural women to come to government institutions to deliver their kid. In fact, our percentage of deliveries has shot up by 40% the last 1 year after we've launched KTR kit. And in fact, hysterectomies have gone down, the normal deliveries have increased, the cesareans have gone down. So a lot of improvement. In fact, that reflects in our IMR and MMR numbers. But like I said, I will not say that we have achieved that level of excellence. By no means I would say that, because that would be an exaggeration.
What's the one key thing which you think helped the most in terms of an initiative which you all implemented?
Like I said, KCR kits is something that has worked very well, but the dialysis centers, the ICUs newly opened in government hospitals across the state, and also I think utilization of technology. For example, I think one of the things which is low-hanging, which can be done, which we also need to be doing, is implementing CCTVs in each and every primary healthcare center across the state, just to make sure that the doctors and the paramedical staff who are supposed to be there in the stipulated hours are actually present and are actually taking care of the patients. These are simple interventions, simple tech interventions, which can help instill confidence among rural areas and poor people to actually come and not waste a lot of money on the private medical institutions.
Okay, all right, Mr. Rama, thank you very much for joining in for this chat. And with that, it's a wrap, but do stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of information and debates coming through from BioAsia in Hyderabad.